start with a quick knowledge recap. We talked about this last week on the podcast, mainly for this episode. We did with Eric the Young God. Shout out Eric the Young God.
Yeah, that shit was funny, bro.
Fantastic episode.
That's
Really,
a funny
really
guy
fun.
right there.
What was that?
That's a funny man right there.
Very funny dude. Yeah,
Possibly the best guest review of an artist that we've had yet. When he reviewed Party Next Door.
His Party Next Door take was harsh. But no, he said what needed to be said. I liked the album and I felt him, on like on a subconscious level. Yeah, I like him a lot because he's hilarious, but he also he makes like very astute observations at the same time. Sometimes that's like kind of the source of his hilarity. Is he pays attention to details.
Yeah.
But 1988 Knxwledge. We gave this a pretty solid review. I don't think we had too much to say beyond like this is a really solid Knxwledge product, and Knxwledge is kind of, as far as hip hop instrumentalists go, like people just putting out their own instrumentals, like he's one of the most prolific in that space. Therefore, this is going to be one of those top records probably of the month or of the year. Just because, the status quo for him is a high bar.
He's got like that weird shadowiness where he doesn't have to be in the public, but everybody knows him and knows exactly what he's about. So it's like if they have an idea that's in that realm, it's like you're going to Knxwledge. You're not going to anybody else.
You understand when he's away, and then it's like when he drops, it kind of feels like a big deal, especially in this instance where he's doing a full-fledged studio album, DSPs and everything.
Yeah.
I thought that was, that's he usually does the direct to consumer format. He's usually the Bandcamp guy. So
yeah,
we talked about how it said a lot that he decided to do it this route and do the whole 9 yards. So Trent, did it grow on you at all, or how are you feeling compared to last week when we talked about it?
Yeah, it grew on me a little bit, which is crazy because it was already like probably my favorite thing that dropped this year. Mm-hmm. And
Trent's a big Knxwledge fan, by the way.
I don't know. Yeah, I might just be a stan, man. I don't know. It's one of those artists where it doesn't matter like if it's not the best thing that he's done, which not that this project necessarily isn't the best thing that he's done. I don't really know yet, but say he dropped like a pretty mid album, he's one of those artists for me where it's just like I'm just gonna say I like it regardless. Yeah. And I think like every music reviewer gets to have like a couple of those artists, and that's one of mine. I'm choosing Knxwledge is just like one of the artists that like no matter what I'm just gonna be like, yeah, that shit was fire. Shut up.
Well, and even beyond that, like I really wouldn't know what to criticize on the record. So, just starting from there, it's like, well, any criticisms I would have, I suppose, would be me trying to have a criticism for the record.
Right.
Go ahead. That's all.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say is like this record's hard to not like because when you think about what it is, it's literally a producer who's trying to flip samples in a different way, but still like an endearing way. Mm-hmm. And that is like the key to all, sample-based production. And you're just taking something that's already been made and you're trying to make it something that's still relevant and still listenable, mm-hmm. but different enough that it's like not just you know,
give it its own life.
Yeah.
And perhaps
I think Knxwledge is like one of the best producers at doing that. Like, just evident in the fact that he like rarely has rappers on his beat tapes, like really rarely has like other artists featured. Like it's always just him, flipping samples. Mm-hmm. So I don't think he can not do it well. You can't really say that he didn't do it well because he's been putting out, project after project, and that's all he does.
Yeah, again, I really wouldn't know. I wouldn't really know where to seriously criticize this. Like, oh, it's really flawed in some way. And then on top of that, like, it not only did what I expected, you know, he did bring in a moment like Minding My Business at the end where he does have vocal features, or, you know, he did the No Worries track, which is like, you know, really exciting moment for the album. So yeah, I would say at a baseline, it's like, well, I wouldn't really know what to beef with on here, but I definitely know, like, there's a couple things that I didn't necessarily expect that ended up really working out well for
this
the
song
record.
that's in the background right now is fucking fire. Any of those songs where he, like, the other one I think it's called My Sunshine off of the anthology. That's like just a couple. It's just like a 4-bar loop, but every time he adds like a different drum section, and then it just eventually you'll get to like the last like 16 bars, and it's just like everything. Oh, dude, that song is so fire.
And yeah, he's really good at like, you know, adding details into his records that may just like pass over, you know.
Right.
They don't stop like the easygoing listen of, or they maybe don't upstage the sample itself. Like, I feel like he chooses a sample for a reason, and then he lets that still, you know, still carry the weight of it, and he can throw details in there without, you know, I think you'd have to like be in your position where you're kind of familiar with his music and you're a fan and you want to kind of like listen to some of the details a little closer to then, you know, see some of the science behind it.
Right.
And yeah, I couldn't have more praise for the guy. And I'm not even like a fan as much as like Trent has been a fan for a long time. So even just from the distance where I'm at, it's very, very impressive record. I'm excited that it came out. So, Jared, any closing thoughts on that before we switch to something else?
Yeah, I really fuck with the New Knowledge. I think it's a really great like encapsulation of like this modern phase of his career. And while it's not doing anything particularly new or like reinventive for his brand, I just feel like it's a very solid album showing off what he can do, especially like given the studio time to like go and do all like the little cleanup work. Because it's like his melodic stuff that he does, like the melodies he creates, like you were just saying how he brings in like the different like drum sections after 4 bars and shit, is just like so wildly impressive that it's like,
right,
at this point it's like so hard for me to disconnect myself from how impressive he is. Even if he's just dropping an album like this where it's just like, this is just more knowledge beats, but it's still so good and unique that it like carries itself in that way.
Right.
So yeah, I fuck with it. I just don't think it's anything necessarily new or exciting, but if you're already a knowledge fan like me, Trent, so many other people, it's a great addition to his discography.
Yeah, I think so. I think he just came in. I think he made a really clean record.
Exactly. Like I feel like if you were to show this to somebody who doesn't know knowledge, like this is a great starting point because it's a studio.
I sent this to my dad actually, and
release, and yeah, exactly. And it's like it just so well encapsulates his different ideologies of production.
Yeah. And I think you're right. It's a little bit maybe easier to approach than a couple of his other records, perhaps.
Yeah, it's like Space Ghost Perp. Like once you throw a dude like that in the studio, he's gonna be a little more conscious of like his experimental ideologies.
Yeah.
Whereas if you let him be mixtape Perp, he's gonna be throwing so many layers and weird effects and experimental ideas in there. So
yeah, that's really cool.